All right, so welcome to part two of mindset hacking. I hope the first part kind of gave you an overview of the biggest negative mindset that you probably have, and that's the mindset of assuming rejection, assuming that other people won't like you if you speak up, or if you try to start a conversation with them, or maybe if you try to introduce yourself to someone, or if you try to walk up to someone you find attractive, right? So that's the biggest negative mindset, and it causes so many of your problems, like self-consciousness, often not knowing what to say, feeling shy, being quiet. It affects so much of how you feel inside and your behavior. That single mindset that says that people are probably not going to like me, right? So I hope that first video gave you some insight into the negative mindset, and it kind of revealed to you how all these different parts of your life, different parts of your behavior were really strategies that started out from this negative mindset. So now in the second part, I'm going to introduce you to this chart. So this to me is like a chart which explains why so many people who have shyness or social anxiety, low confidence, trouble forming friendships or relationships, why people struggle with these issues for so many years. It's because you're trapped in a negative cycle. So I know this chart might look a bit confusing if you're just seeing it now, but I'm gonna spend time explaining each different step in this cycle so that by the end you really understand very clearly how your lack of confidence is both caused by and created by your beliefs. So your lack of confidence, fear of rejection, shyness, quietness, it's caused by negative unconscious beliefs, but then it also creates more bad beliefs, right? So you don't really have to understand what I'm saying yet. I'm going to explain everything to you step by step. So when you look at this chart, the cycle begins in the top left. There's an arrow pointing down, and in the top left, I put start here, early childhood traumas. I think the most common cause of issues like shyness, social anxiety, lack of confidence, this overly strong fear of rejection. Based on my research and my years of experience, studying people who have shyness or social anxiety and helping them out of it, the most common cause is early childhood trauma. And when I say trauma, it doesn't have to be like a super serious trauma, like, seeing someone die in front of you. For example, I very often hear stories about people who at one point in their life, they were bullied at school, or they felt excluded, from the group at school. And they say that's when their social anxiety really took off. Another cause of shyness, social anxiety, lack of confidence is early childhood parental neglect. And this causes something called toxic shame. So if your parents didn't give you unconditional love and respect while you were growing up, maybe they compared you too much with other kids or with your brother or sister, or maybe they were too strict with you, they gave you too many standards, or maybe they didn't give you enough attention, or maybe it's possible that they could create a trauma by giving you too much attention, right? They tried to control you too much. So there's a lot of different ways that parents or other parental figures, authority figures early in life could cause a type of early childhood trauma that leads to negative unconscious beliefs. Another cause of shyness or social anxiety early in life is simply a type of natural sensitivity, right? So issues like shyness, social anxiety, lack of confidence, they're not always completely caused by, simply your environment, like bullying or something that happened to you early on. It's a combination. It's a combination of your natural sensitivity to these types of experiences and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you've read my shyness and social anxiety system, this should all be a review for you. And if you want more details into what causes issues like what I've been talking about, then I really encourage you to check out the shyness and social anxiety system. I don't want to repeat too much in this program, although, because I'm talking about similar issues, I do have to repeat stuff sometimes. So, we start off with these types of early childhood traumas that cause negative unconscious beliefs within you. So, when you suffer from those types of experiences that I just talked about, or when you have a natural type of sensitivity to negative early experiences, or when your brain simply interprets situations in a very negative way, you can often develop many unconscious beliefs about yourself. So these could be beliefs like I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm unattractive. Basically, they're assumptions of rejection. You start to believe that there's something wrong with you. You start to feel shame about certain parts of you. Maybe it's your appearance, maybe it's your lifestyle. You feel like you need to hide the fact that you're a loner, or maybe, if you're not successful with the opposite sex, you need to hide the fact that you're a virgin, right? So these unconscious beliefs, they usually make you feel insecure, ashamed of yourself. I remember back when I had social anxiety, I often felt embarrassed about myself in social situations for no reason. Imagine that you were looking at some dirty images on your computer and your parents or your boss walked in on you. And imagine that feeling of shame that you feel come up. Well, back when I had social anxiety, I had that type of feeling all the time. So some people feel this belief just a little bit. Like maybe if you're kind of shy, you only feel a bit of fear in social situations, you might have a bit of this beliefs. Or if you have very extreme social anxiety and really low confidence, then you might have very strong beliefs about yourself being unworthy, maybe not good enough, and so on and so forth. And again, these are unconscious beliefs. It's not something that you're usually thinking, like you're not saying these things out loud in your head, I'm not good enough, I'm unattractive. But what happens is that you have these unconscious beliefs about yourself and they come through in your behavior. So when you feel not good enough, when you feel like you're less than other people, like you're inferior in some way, or you're insecure about your appearance, then you're usually gonna have low status behaviors. You might have low confidence, so you might have a lot of quietness. You might be afraid to speak up, afraid to maybe introduce yourself to someone new. That's like a fear of rejection. You might hide away and isolate yourself, like I mentioned in the last video. Or you might also have a lot of people-pleasing behaviors, like always trying to act nice, always trying to say interesting things, trying to change yourself to every individual person you talk to, so you act differently, way differently around different people, right? So all these beliefs, they lead to low status behaviors. And like I mentioned last week, the irony is that people don't like low status behaviors. People are almost automatically repelled by low status behaviors. When you act low status, when you're self-conscious, when you're feeling awkward, when you feel uncomfortable just talking to someone, when you feel nervous or anxious or shy, when you don't speak up, how do people usually treat you? What usually happens is that people reflect back to you what you believe about yourself. So if you think that you're unlikable, then you hide your true self, you hide your opinions and your real interests from people. And as a result, you don't connect with people and you have few friends and you feel loneliness. Because you assume that people will reject you, you're afraid to speak up, so you hide away, you have a lack of confidence. And as a result, you usually become invisible in social situations. In fact, let's just think about your voice, right? What's the difference between having a loud voice in a situation versus having a soft voice, a quiet voice? A loud voice is a high status behavior. It shows other people that you're not afraid to draw attention to yourself. It attracts social pressure to you, which is what makes it high status. On the other hand, a soft, quiet voice is approval seeking. You're usually quiet when you don't want to draw too many people's attention. A quiet voice is a strategy to avoid rejection. It's approval seeking, in other words. So you have a belief, a negative unconscious belief that was probably formed in early childhood, which leads to low status behaviors, which leads to other people treating you in a way that responds to the way that you're behaving. And now here's where it becomes a cycle. When you see that other people don't pay you as much attention, you can't seem to connect as well with other people, you might not get as much interest from the opposite sex as other more confident people do. When you see all this evidence out in real life, you start to create even more beliefs about it. So when your life looks a certain way, you need explanations for why it looks the way it looks. A lot of people who have social anxiety have physical insecurities. They think they're too tall or too short. They think they're maybe too fat or too skinny. They truly believe that their physical insecurity is why they might have few or no friends, why they're not confident, why people, don't seem to really put effort to get to know them. Another explanation for this evidence is telling yourself that maybe I'm just different. One way that people sometimes put the nail in the coffin and trap themselves in this cycle is by labeling themselves as someone who has quote-unquote social anxiety or shyness. They say, the reason why this is happening is because I have this illness or disorder. This is in my genetics. This is part of my personality. They label themselves as someone who has shyness or social anxiety. And unfortunately, a lot of modern psychology encourages people to do this, to label themselves with these issues. So that's basically the cycle of bad. You have unconscious beliefs that lead to you feeling self-conscious or nervous or acting shy or quiet. And then because you act a certain way, people respond to you a certain way. And when people respond to you a certain way, you usually aren't going to realize that your beliefs are the cause of it. Your beliefs and then your behavior are the cause of it. Because your beliefs are unconscious. And a lot of your behavior is also unconscious. Have you ever heard yourself on an audio recording or maybe seen yourself on a videotape and you thought to yourself, wow, that's what I sound like? Or wow, that's what I act like on camera? We don't realize how we're coming across to other people, usually. Your behaviors are often unconscious, and your beliefs are unconscious. So because you can't see the cause of why people respond to you the way they do, you have to create explanations. You create more beliefs of insecurities, of inferiority, and this just fuels the cycle more and more. So how exactly can you break this cycle? Well, I'll give you a very concrete example of how I managed to do just that in the next video.